Good morning, boys and girls. On this somewhat unexpectedly grey morning, you're watching this special single brand edition of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, on Instagram Live. So thank you very much for tuning in. The reason why we're doing this morning is because it's not every day that you have the release of not one but three new Chanel. So we have a bit of a Chanel shrine happening here on this Friday morning. My usual hellos and things that I say, waving back to everybody, by the way. Francis on the Rock says hi. Apologies from the start if I miss any comments that you make, because they flash by very, very quickly on this screen. So if you are watching right now on Instagram Live, thank you very much indeed for tuning in. Feel free to ask a question or make a comment. If you have already tried these, I'd like to hear from you as well. The video, as per usual Instagram rules, will be available on Instagram for 24 hours, which basically means that it will disappear at around 8 AM on Saturday morning, UK time, but then a few days after that, or quite soon after that, I will upload it to YouTube. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Give me a thumbs up, ask a question. I try to get round to all of the comments, wherever they may be, as soon as possible. So just making sure I haven't missed anybody. Listening to you in the car, Francis on the Rocks. Please drive carefully, and I hope you have a good enough connection that doesn't distract you. And Tel Aviv Personal says hello. Dee says good morning. Good morning to all of you waving back. Tel Aviv Personal, does that mean you are actually watching from Tel Aviv? Because if you are, that's pretty amazing. Right, three new Chanels hovering here at the back of my impromptu Chanel shrine. The eagle-eyed amongst you will already have... Oh, you are in Tel Aviv. Fantastic. What's the weather like there? Is it as grey as it is here? Some of you will have been aware of these scents for a little while. The news about them broke on the internet a few months ago, but they don't actually officially come out until today. And I don't like saying a huge amount about perfumes until most of you are actually able to go out and get them. Waving back to everybody who's waving at me. So here we are, Friday the 13th. It's Donald Trump Day in some parts of the country, but for us it's Chanel Day. Les Eaux De Chanel, three new releases in a brand new range that may or may not be extended as the years pass. All of them, of course, made by the current in-house perfumer. Greetings from Australia and thumbs up. Hello back to all of you. Who's that? Christine Armour 0915 from Australia. Well, it's probably actually not that bad a time in Australia at the moment, whereas some of us here in England are still looking a little bit bleary-eyed, but never mind. And Indonesia as well. This is incredible, absolutely incredible. I think we'll kind of let off North America for not being with us, because it's probably very, very, very early there. Spritz and Sniff says, I understand that there are three more to come in this range. Well, then you know more than I do, because that is news to me. I hadn't heard that. I think the best way to start, because I do want to do this very quickly, I'm not going to take up a lot of your time here. 5:30 in the afternoon in Australia. Wow, it's almost tomorrow. Jeez. I think the best way to start will be actually with a little blurb from the press release, so that you get the official Chanel line on why these scents were created. So as it says here, in 2018, Chanel invites us on a new olfactory adventure, a one-way trip to a land of brand new sensations. Well, okay, maybe not brand new. A singular collection named Les Eaux De Chanel. This line of fragrances evokes the train we would love to board at the last second, and the destination whose name, like a magic word, let me just do a swap here because it's going to be more comfortable, like a magic word need only be uttered to savour the scent of faraway places on the skin. Les Eaux de Chanel plunge us into unfamiliar territory with remarkable, immediate and lasting freshness, key word here, that makes us want to sail away here and now. No need to get away from it all. Les Eaux de Chanel takes us on a journey at high speed. In the end, it's not the finish line that matters, all of a sudden it's a race, but the idea of escape and the image it conjures up. And then there is that ecstatic sweetness written in the olfactory structure, firing up the imagination so that for a few, and so it goes on. The idea, I think, is to basically evoke the Gabrielle Chanel history, the Gabrielle Chanel heritage, by taking three destinations, three places in Europe that were quite important to Chanel, quite iconic to Gabrielle Chanel. Stephen Jones Millinery says, love fragrance copy. Yes. It's a love-hate relationship for me. I do love reading it, but sometimes I don't get a huge amount out of it, which is why we have, and I can't see where I put them. Here we go. This is Paris-Deauville, or I suppose we should say Paris-Deauville. This is Paris-Biarritz, and this is Paris-Venice, or Paris-Venise. I think we should just start by smelling them. Now, I'm having a little bit of Chanel overload today because my written reviews of these are also going to appear on Persolaise.com later today, so if you prefer your reviews in prose, or indeed if you would like to see if the prose puts a slightly different slant on what I'm about to say here, then please do check out the blog at some point. And for reasons that may become obvious, I would like to start with Deauville, Paris-Deauville. I can't even remember if I've been to Deauville, but I think if I have, then it was a long time ago. I tend not to visit that part of France so much anymore. Very, very popular destination for weekenders from Paris, because it's by the sea, but it's not so far from Paris. And whoever's giving me all those hearts and thumbs up and multicoloured hearts, a little bit trippy for a Friday morning, thank you very much, much appreciated. Chemist in the bottle, waving back to you as well. Let's have a sniff of... Now, this is where the technology lets me down a little bit, because I haven't got the best camera or the best lighting in the world, but you probably can't see that they've done it. No, you can't see that. It's a very, very particular spray mechanism. It's not a kind of standard spray. It releases the scent in quite a diffuse mist, a little bit like what they did for the poudre version of number 19 a few years ago. And I think the idea is that they're encouraging you to apply it quite liberally, which isn't a problem, because they are essentially, all three of them are on the lighter side of the spectrum. They are essentially cologne-like scents. Now, this is immediately hitting me with a burst of citrus, a very, very fresh citrus, and I'm immediately reminded, just from smelling Deauville, spray lavishly, says Chemist in a Bottle. Oh, you could see it. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Tel Aviv Personal. I'm not going to ask why you call Tel Aviv Personal, is it? Never mind. And what struck me about these three collectively, which is what I say in my written review as well, is that maybe because in terms of their concepts, in terms of the marketing strategy, in terms of their names, maybe because they delve into Gabrielle Chanel's past, it's almost as though Olivier Polge himself decided to go into the scented archive and Chanel, and you could interpret these as modern updates on certain key Chanel scents. So the first time I tried this, and it is Spritz and Sniff says, I think that Les Eaux will be to Olivier what Les Exclusifs are to Jacques. Possibly. I don't think the Exclusifs are over. I'm pretty sure we're not going to get one this year. But I guess it all depends on how they do. And if they do very well, then I'm sure Chanel will want to capitalize on that and release some more. But this one immediately reminded me of Chance. Buongiorno says Il tuo tulipano. Buongiorno from Miss C. Hello, Miss C. And buongiorno to you as well. I hope you're having a better giorno than we are here in the south of England. Because I always think of Chance as quite a citrusy cedar scent. Very, very, very clean, very well scrubbed. I think a lot of you will be aware that one of the reasons why Chance was made and released was so that it could tap into the North American tastes for cleaner scents, and this is like a stripped down, even more accessible, even simpler Chance. Happy Friday, Perfume Hero, says Scentmag. Thank you very much. Rescuing you from perfume villains every week. And it's charming. It's quite sweetly citrus-like. Maybe a touch of pink grapefruit or blood orange there, going into woodiness as well. I can't imagine this offending anybody. I could very easily imagine myself, maybe, over the summer, spraying it quite liberally. So this is your safe one. Deauville is the safe one, and let me just try and maybe read you a few lines from the press release. It says that the kind of tagline for Paris-Deauville is crinkled leaves and bitter green. I actually think this one is kind of greener than this one, but there's definitely a green aspect to this as well. This is where it all began. In the spring of 1912, a seaside resort on the Normandy coast caught the attention of the young milliner Gabrielle Chanel. Deauville was already the destination of choice for Parisians at the weekend, the ideal location to sell her first creations that broke with the stylistic codes of the time. And then it goes on a little bit about the history of Deauville, but I think what we want to hear about is the perfume. So, although the Channel resort town harbours a dizzying number of legendary Chanel symbols, Olivier Polge wanted to avoid taking an olfactory inventory. More than the actual reality of the destination, I liked the idea urbanites make of it when they dream of a weekend away in the country, confides Olivier Polge. He's just confided in rather a large number of people. I wasn't striving to capture the Normandy countryside as it stands today, he says, but rather the promise of a stroll through tall grasses. Paris-Deauville immerses us into a bitter, biting green. Green, yes. Bitter, no. To me, this is actually quite sweet and smiling and pleasant. Bitter might have been interesting. A colour that grabs hold of the body and fills it with fresh air. First comes the vivifying energy of orange rind, petit grain and highly aromatic basil leaf. Essence of rose and jasmine-like notes hold their heads high and proud, honouring the floral heart of the composition. Then the distinct vintage and Chypre character of patchouli rings out, possibly, but these first two anyway are really not about the base notes. They're really not about the dry down. In fact, if anything, Paris-Deauville kind of starts losing its way towards the dry down. If you're still paying attention a few hours later, it does start becoming a little bit thin. But then these are not even meant to be about the dry down. You are meant to keep reapplying them so that you're just getting the top notes. A wood rooted in the ground, this is the patchouli, ready to distill its implacable energy. Paris-Deauville is a carefree and roaming eau, a decidedly wayward signature between land and sea. Okay, so I think Chanel think that maybe it's a little bit more carefree, a little bit more free-spirited than I do. Pardon the wobbly set. This is like Doctor Who circa 1974. You just go like that and everything threatens to topple over. But that's not to say that it isn't enjoyable. This is perhaps, in a way, the most surprising one as far as fresh scents go, because this is a kind of oriental cologne. So here we have Paris-Venise, Paris-Venice. It's the one, I forget who it was, but somebody earlier said that it was their favourite. I have to confess, it's the one that I struggle with the most. Partly because, let's do that mist thing again. Let's see if you see it this time. I have no idea if you would have seen that, but you probably may have heard it, actually. It's the sound that's almost as satisfying as the visual. To me, it kind of feels as though this doesn't quite know what it wants to be, but I'm pretty sure in my written review I used the word twilight as a kind of scent that's somewhere between night and day, somewhere between cologne and a full-on oriental. It's not without interest. Really quite sweet, because it straight away seems to go for all those vanillic notes, and because it's an oriental with quite a sort of powdery vanillic balsamic base, it immediately makes me think of cocoa, and maybe to some extent cocoa noir, and cocoa noir was overtly, in terms of its marketing, inspired by Venice, and here we have the connection with Venice. So I thought, okay, could Olivier Polge be doing this deliberately? So maybe with this one he decided to revisit Chance, maybe with this one he decided to revisit Cocoa. I can imagine it's probably quite wise of Chanel to include this one here, because the people who might get turned off by these may immediately reach for that one, and if they, if they're at an airport or somewhere and they fancy a new Chanel, they may think, okay, well, this is the one for me. But don't be expecting a traditional, fresh, bracing eau or cologne, because it is actually quite sweet and sticky. The benefit of all of that is that, of course, actually this one has the most interesting dry down, because it's got more attention has been paid to its base, and it contains more sort of bass-like notes. So very, very quickly, Paris-Venice, the tagline for this one is Oriental Promise. Turkish delight, anyone? And hushed impression. In 1920, Mademoiselle was inconsolable. To erase the memory of Boy Capel, who died tragically in a car accident in December 1919, Misia and the painter José María Sert invited her to Venice. So it goes on. You can probably find all this stuff out on the internet. Itor Tulipano says, it's sunny here in Assisi. Oh, it's Hilda Soliani. I didn't realize it was you. Good morning. Thank you very much for tuning in. And Venise, according to Sophie Albrecht, says, Venise is the most interesting as it is a very aerial oriental, but Deauville is my favorite. Yeah, I know what you mean. You kind of smell Venice and you think, oh, okay, so this is what you're trying to do with a light structure. We're building up to my favorite. My favorite is Biarritz, but I'll try and explain why in a sec. Anyway, in terms of its olfactory profile, the creation of Eau de Chanel Paris-Venice draws inspiration as much from the long journey on the Orient Express, from the French capital to the Italian city, as from the destination itself, explains perfumer Olivier Polge. I wanted people to smell that gateway to the Orient, which at Chanel is also an evocation of the Baroque. It is probably the most urban of the three. I have no idea what they mean. If they'd said it's probably the most opulent, it's probably the richest, it's probably the least cologne-like, yes, but urban, to me, urban kind of means edgy, modern, skyscrapers. It's probably the most classic, actually, but there we go. Maybe poor translation, I don't know. Could urban... I hope they didn't mean urbane. I don't know. Anyway, it's probably the most urban of the three. Paris-Venice thus rises to the challenge of harmoniously reuniting the gold and sumptuousness of the Orient with a cosy, cottony sensation. While citrus still weaves its way through the fragrance, narrowly remains subdued, a hint of red berry whispers to iris, and grass geranium, tangy and floral. Then a vibrant cedar and an ambry accord murmur their voice. You can detect the vanilla... Try again. You can detect the vanilla note and oriental scents that warm the skin without overpowering. Venice has never been so accessible, never so subtle. Francis on the Rock says, thank you for the review. I've arrived at my office. Great work as usual. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Hope you're as productive as you need to be on this Friday. So, yeah, this is the curious one. Venice is the curious one. And let's just finish off very quickly with my favourite from these three, Biarritz, a place that I've never been to. And I think the reason why I'm most impressed with this one, it's the one that I genuinely found myself reaching for the most and wearing the most as I was trying them out. But also, I was personally impressed because, for me, it is a rare example of a scent that works even though it contains, shock horror, a marine note. And it's actually a surprisingly effective marine note. So here we go. Paris-Biarritz, one of the three O. Just making sure I'm not missing any comments. Now, this on the face of it starts off as a kind of traditional cologne, so very, very different from Venice. Again, you're getting the citrus notes, you're getting that bracing feeling, you're getting that kind of energetic vibe. But then you realise that there's more than just citrus at play here, and you detect that marine note, and there's the kind of perfume geek part of you that immediately thinks, oh my god, marine note, is this going to be awful? Because marine notes, I think, more often than not, don't work. It's very, very rare that they do work. But here it all kind of falls into place, because I think it's so well judged and couched in lots and lots of other things. So you get green assets, you get a very, very marked herbal facet, the grass facet is there, iris. If any of you remember the Eau de Narcisse Bleu from Hermès by Jean-Claude Eleanor, which did a very, very interesting thing with narcissus and herbs and almost like a kind of salad dressing feel, but in a good way, this reminds me of that. This is the one of the three that I would most want to wear. And then, of course, the main thing I'm forgetting is the floral heart is a kind of lily of the valley, freesia. So not only do you have the technical challenge of trying to do a marine note, but you've also got the technical challenge of doing a lily of the valley. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not a soliflor, this is not Chanel's version of Durissimo. These are all just subtle little markers along the way, or little droplets in this eruption of sea spray, because it really does feel like sea spray. But they do all work, and this is the one that I can imagine actually taking on holiday with myself this year. So let us just very quickly read that one, and then I shall leave you to the rest of your Friday. Still today, as in the past, all eyes in Biarritz and along the Basque coast are riveted by the power of the ocean, this tireless force that metamorphoses the rolling waves into vaporous sea foam on the sand. Now overrun with surfers and extreme sports enthusiasts, the southwestern resort has always known how to blend a certain sporty spirit with a rare elegance. Paris-Biarritz is the most aquatic fragrance in Les Eaux De Chanel collection, proclaims Olivier Polge. I wanted to create a sensation on the skin as if each ingredient was soaked with water. But there's no question of dissolving the competition. Ha ha ha, I like what you did there, Chanel. Olivier Polge decided to energize the top notes with a burst of grapefruit and mandarin. Accompanied by an aqueous note, the citrus prepares the way for a lily-of-the-valley accord. The groundswell of the formula, Vetiver, not overly detectable. Again, this is not a perfume that's about the base notes, so don't be expecting a massive Vetiver dose here. The groundswell of the formula, Vetiver, blends with white musk notes to heighten the bracing sensations. Paris-Biarritz instantly revitalizes. It has the effect of an ice-cold dip in the sea on a sunny day, of a strong, deep breath of air. I would agree with the latter, the breath of air, more than the former. It's not cold. It doesn't feel like an ice-cold dip. It feels like lying by the side of the sea on the beach and, you know, having sea spray landing on your face. It doesn't feel like a dip. And to round off, so I said that Deauville reminded me of Chance. I said that Venice reminded me of Coco and Coco Noir. To me, Biarritz is like an update on Cristal. Maybe suggestions of 1932 as well, the sort of iris-like, musky aspects of 1932. But I smelt this and I thought, oh, okay, so is this Olivier Polge's take on Cristal? So, like I said, written reviews of these on... Oh, Spritz and Sliff says, you had me at Lily of the Valley. Good, because this kind of had me at Lily of the Valley as well. Written reviews of all of these will appear on persolaise.com later today. This video will stay up until Saturday morning UK time, so around 8 AM Saturday morning UK time, and then after that I will upload it to YouTube, so if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to leave a comment or ask a question. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Thank you very much for tuning in, and the next time you're near a Chanel boutique, I think, or a sort of more exclusive Chanel concession, because these will not be available at all Chanel counters, the next time you come across these, give them a sniff and then let me know which is your favourite. So until next time, thank you very much for tuning in. Look after each other, look after yourselves, be good, etc, etc. Have a great Friday. Ignore the fact that it's Friday the 13th. Thank you very much as well. Ha 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 33 ha. Bye.